Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in this evening. It's another International Parenting Conference. Are you excited? I am very excited. Okay, so it's 5 p.m. and we're going to start right about now while we wait for others to join us. They'll join us, hopefully. Our speakers are here. We are excited. And today we are going to be learning a lot. But before we jump right into everything that we have today, let's just say a good prayer. Our Father in heaven, we give you praise. We thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to gather once again. It's been about 2 years, but you have kept us. Thank you for the International Parenting Conference 1.0, the International Parenting Conference 2.0, and even this one. Thank you for the things you have set to teach us today. We ask, oh God, that you take preeminence of this meeting in the name of Jesus. This conference is blessed. We will learn all that you have for us today. We will glean from your wisdom, O Lord. And at the end of it all glory will be unto your name, in the name of Jesus. Thank you, wonderful Father, for in Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen. Amen. Are you excited to be here? Thank you for joining us this evening. Today, we are looking at mind protection, the critical but mostly overlooked aspect of child protection. And this is very important because, in the world we live in today, children, our words are exposed to different things. I mean, on social media, on the TV, radio channels. These days, sometimes it's even hard to differentiate between white and black. People will say, it might be gray, There are no clear lines anymore. Everything is just getting blurry. And a lot of people are wondering, how do I take care of my child in this present age? How do I preserve the mind of my toddler? How do I preserve the mind of my child? How do I preserve the mind of my teenager, right? A lot is going on. We are seeing different things, but we want to build up children who are taught in the way of the Lord, who are taught in the fear of the Lord, who are preserved, who are morally upright, who are good standing citizens of their country. How do we do this in a world where things are not black or white anymore? Things are not just clear cuts. There are a lot of things that seem to be sins or things that seem to be unheard of before. These days, people are now saying, maybe it is this, it might not really be bad. So today, we are concerned people, and that's the aim of Family Minders Foundation, really to provide support, education, and everything we need to ensure that our families are adequately minded, right? So before we go on into everything that we have today, I want to say a very big welcome to you. Thank you for joining us today. I want you to know that your time here will not be wasted. You would enjoy it. It's going to be rich. It's going to be practical. We'll be able to ask questions, and it will be a beautiful time. I am the moderator, and my name is Oluwafi Ibomi Amobi. So thank you once again for joining in. Sit back, relax, and just enjoy the conference. Okay, so right about now, I'm going to invite the chairman and the co-founder of the Family Minders Foundation to give us his opening remarks. Mr. David Amobi, you're welcome.
All right. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I just want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. It's a pleasure to have you on here. We are more than excited to do this. Just to give a background about who we are, Family Minders Foundation was birthed out of the desire to preserve the sanctity of families and homes. Our mission, our vision statement outrightly is to equip families with the knowledge, skills, and support needed to build stable families as defined by God, because a stable family now has many definitions. We are trying to see how to return this to the standard that it should be. And so we host conferences and meetings and webinars and seminars where we try to share knowledge and have rich conversations that can be used to equip all our listeners and followers and just those who stakeholders basically, equip them with the knowledge needed to build the kind of homes that God will have them build. And this conference, the International Parenting Conference, is one of the arms with which we use to share the knowledge and just have the conversations for parents, future parents, child caregivers, guardians. We hope that with this conversation and with our guests, speakers, expert guest speakers, we'll be able to get things that will help us in this time, in this age, in this generation, to parent properly or to be a guardian as we should. And this conference, themed Mind Protection, as she has rightly said earlier, is because we are seeing that child protection needs to go beyond the body alone. And that's a vital part of it. We agree that that's a part of it. You know, we need to protect our children against physical molestation and physical abuse, but there is such a thing as mental abuse and emotional molestation and verbal molestation, things that can damage not the physical, tangible part of the child, but other parts of the child that, you know, we might not necessarily see with our eyes, but will go a long way in affecting the future of the child. And that's like the purpose of this conference. And we are saying that with this conference, after this conference, we hope that everyone that attends will be equipped with all they need, all the knowledge that they need to guard and safeguard the minds of their children, not just against physical molestation, but against mental molestation and dreams molestation and emotional molestation and all sorts of things that will be trying to attack our children. So I want to say thank you everyone for joining. It's our privilege to have this. And to our guest speakers, thank you. We have guest speakers today that are very enlightened, very rich, and very knowledgeable of the subject matter. I would add that they are also God-fearing, so they are coming with a balanced perspective. So I want to say thank you to them and thank you to our listeners. I also want to say that there's still time to invite people to join this conversation. In case you have a parent, a friend, a conversation is not meant to be very long. It's not, so we're not going to be here forever. So you can still invite someone to just join in and listen. I promise it's going to be an exciting time. Thank you once again for joining today. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. So as I said, we're welcome. Okay, so we're not going to waste much of our time today. We're not going to spend too much time today. So I will be inviting the first speaker very shortly. But as I said, we still have time to, invite people who, should be here. So it could be a childminder, it could be a teacher, a parent, or even someone still trusting God for the fruit of the womb. We're all welcome. With parents one day, we might have children, in our environment. This is a topic that is very important, no matter the level you are right now. So please, let's invite, our parents, families to join us in this conversation, right? So before I invite the next speaker, I want to point it out that I have a gift voucher courtesy of the Family Minders Foundation for the most interactive participants. So you are going to do something for me. I'll think about what you would do to earn this. Okay, it's supposed to be a gift, right? But you work for it small. But I'll just think about what you would do, right? But before we go on, I want us to drop in the chat box. I want to know, okay, the demography of our listeners. So just drop in the chat box where you are listening to us from. So are you in Nigeria? Are you in Lagos? Are you in APT? Are you overseas? Are you in Dubai? Are you in Canada? Just drop in the chat box. I'm going to be reading our comments very shortly. I just want to know where we are listening from. I can see we have a number of people here. So I'm just going to check our chat box now to know where you're listening from. I'm waiting on the comments. Yeah, I can see Canada. Just one person has dropped. Please chat. Obiadana says overseas in Lekki. I know, right? It's on the island as well. Panbomi says Lagos. Olu Busaya says Lagos. I want to see more comments. Do we have more comments? I'm already noting people that are commenting, because it seems like they already have the chances to win my voucher. Fumilola Akintokumbo says Lagos mainland, beautiful. Do we have any more comments? While I'm still waiting on people's comments, Let me ask one more question. So please just drop in the chat box. Okay, I have Lagos Mainland Bagada from Taiwo. Oh, we have a lot of Lagos people here. Anybody from outside Lagos? I have Amuo Odofi from Samuel. Anybody from outside Lagos? Anyone from outside Lagos? Okay, so one Canada and a lot of Lagos. So that means majority of us here are in Nigeria. That's beautiful. I'm still waiting to see if I'll see any other comments. Okay, so that we don't take too much time, right? I'm just going to introduce our next speaker right away. Our first speaker is Olufunsho Chikezie, and she's an education and child development consultant. She's a trained teacher and licensed by the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, TRCN. She's also an internationally certified parenting educator and coach. She has over 10 years in training and consulting for schools across Nigeria and almost 25 years experience in children and teens ministry. She's a highly sought after speaker and trainer who has spoken and trained at various conferences and seminars. She's a member of a number of professional organizations, including the World Organization for Early Childhood Education, OMEP, where she currently serves as the General Secretary of the Lagos State Chapter, and the Solid Teens and Youth Initiative, where she formerly headed the Training Academy of the ministry. She now heads their Volunteers Development Program. She's also an ordained pastor in RCCG. Apart from supporting her husband in pastoring area headquarters, RCCG Full Expression, she also serves as the Provincial Junior Church Coordinator for Youth Province 7. She is married and blessed with a teenage daughter and preschooler son. And if I may add, she has been to both our conferences and even this third one. She has been a speaker. She's somebody we respect so much. So without further ado, with a clapping ovation, please let's welcome Mrs. Funsho Chikezie, or Mrs. FC as we like to call her. You're welcome back.
Thank you very much, Bumi. Good evening, everyone. Let me find my video. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to, I believe this is the third edition of the Family Minders Conference. We thank God that we're able to leverage on technology this year. It's getting better and better. We're having people coming from all over the world, and it's going to get better still. Thank you for inviting me. I have less than 40 minutes now to speak on this, I believe, inspired theme that you have for this year. I really think that the theme was divinely inspired. I think it's right on point. I believe that it is relevant. In fact, thinking about the theme, I was a bit at a loss as to which angle or what leg, as you would like, as you might say, I should take, we should take the discourse from, because it's quite a lot. Well, God is going to help us in the next few minutes to see as much that we can address. And I'm sure that the second speaker, my dear sister, also will add or will continue wherever I stop. I believe we've already said an opening prayer, so I would rest on that prayer and trust God for wisdom and utterance. So the topic before us this evening, this theme talks about mind protection. And the subtitle or the sub-theme says the critical but generally overlooked aspects of child protection. So we're in a day and age where there's a lot of talk as far as child protection is concerned. Child safety is, but even here in Africa, here in Nigeria, we know that we've had so many incidences of children and whatnot, either at home or in the school environment. And usually when these things happen, there's a lot of outcry as to how some adults, were negligent and this and that. And sometimes these incidents even lead to the demise of have led to the deaths of some children or some teenagers. So the issue of child safety, child protection, safeguarding is hardly new to anyone these days. Was that to me? So, but like the conveners are pointing us to this evening, many times a lot has already happened, in the mind of a child or in the minds of the children, that adults are not aware of until there's an outward expression of what had already been brewing or brooding in the mind of that child for several years. And unfortunately, many adults don't know that the mind of a child, is at its peak in terms of, permit me to use the word, fertility, malleability, right from childhood. So behavior, whilst we are looking at behavior, the outward expressions or of whatever it is going on with children or with teenagers, we need to understand that the things that we see in behavior are the fruits of seeds that had been sown long ago and had established roots and sometimes have become very difficult to even uproot because they've been there for long. So I'll share some bit of information to give us more perspective as far as this is concerned. By the grace of God, my entry into education, I didn't start out as an educator or a parenting. I didn't start out in the field of childcare or youth development professionally. Yes, I've been volunteering with the NGO that I work with, Solid Teens and Youth Initiative, for over 20 years as a volunteer. But I started out as a financial auditor before I felt, okay, child development, education, youth development was what I felt led to do, as career. So, and my entry into the field of education was through early childhood education. So early childhood education, although now I work with primary schools, secondary schools, junior churches, wherever children and teenagers are. But my first entrance into the field of education as a career was as an early childhood educator. And when I got into, in fact, what even brought me into early childhood education was the fact that I had my first child at the time. And I was, maybe the consultant in me, the researcher in me was curious as to what was best for a child. I was about to enroll her into creche, and I was wondering, okay, what do you even look out for? What's the best as far as this level or this stage of life is concerned? And then I stumbled on a whole lot of information on early childhood education. And I was so wowed by the information, as to how the first 5-6 years of life are in fact the most critical years of life. And the information was so compelling that I lost my sleep. And I eventually ended up resigning my job, very lucrative job then with very high, great prospects, to go into education, to go back to school and do an initial diploma and then several other diplomas and courses on education. And what was that information? Some of that information, tells us what happens in the mind of a child from day one. So that when we're talking child protection from a perspective of mind protection, maybe if the only thing that I'm able to, if the only foundation that I'm able to lay this evening is that the issue or the assignment of protecting our children's minds is something that starts from day one, or should start from day one. It's something that we start from birth, because from birth is when that mind begins to form. UNESCO says education or learning begins from birth. The truth of the matter, meaning that from the moment a child comes out from the womb, the child has already started learning. There's what we call an inner teacher. The mind is already being formed. You don't need to do any direct teaching. Maria Montessori, for example, wrote a book titled The Absorbent Mind, and it's one of the major pillars of, her theory, her education theory. The fact that from early childhood, from the first 3 years of life, from birth, that children are born with what is called an absorbent mind, meaning that a mind that is like a sponge. You don't need to teach anything directly. They just keep sucking up everything that is in the environment without selection, good, bad, and the ugly. So in the first 3 years, we are told that children have what is called an unconscious absorbent mind, meaning that they are soaking up information, they are learning, they're taking everything from the environment, and they are not even aware that they are doing so. They are doing it in an unconscious manner, such that they don't know they are learning the things that they are learning until those things start playing out. Then from ages 3 to 6, then still the child has an absorbent mind, but this time around, it now gains consciousness. The truth of the matter is that in the first 6 years of life, this is the mind that children have. And there's no other time in human development that the mind of a human being is this powerful as in the first 6 years. So unconsciously, learning starts in the first 3 years of life. Before at the time when you will say, what does a child know? He's just playing. A lot is happening. So at birth, the brain of a newborn, at birth, we're told that at birth, the brain of a newborn is just about 25% the size of an adult's brain at birth. Now, see what happens from that 25% adult size that adult size brain that children are born with, that newborns come with. In 3 years, that brain grows because of all the information, all the content, all that it is soaking in. That brain grows in size from 25% the size of an adult to 80% the size of an adult's brain in 3 years, in just 3 years. And then by age 5, a typical 5-year-old's brain is almost equal in size to that of an adult, 90%. By age 5, the brain of the child is up to 90% that of an adult. So you see that it's really permit me to use the word, magical period of life, miraculous, maybe it's the Christian term, period of life that everyone needs to pay attention to. We're told also that it's whatever we call character in adults, where if you say somebody has a good character, this person has bad character. The character of an individual is also formed in these first 6 years of life. So it is not whatever character you and I have didn't happen in our adult years, didn't even happen in our teenage years, didn't even happen in our mid-childhood years. Character is formed in the first 6 years of life because of all that's going on in the mind. We're told also that 85% of what our personalities will eventually be. Of course, this is not a training on personality, but generally, we have introverts, we have extroverts. Whatever personality you are today, 85% of that was also decided by the time you were 6 years old. You can check up all this by yourself online. So the first 6 years of life, if we're going to protect or if we're going to shape the mind of a human being, in other words, it is in that first stage, that first window of life, the first 6 years, that you have the best chance of protecting or forming the mind of a human. And when we miss that first stage, then everything else is catch up. Yes, there are some extensions. So first 6 years is where you want to concentrate on. If you're going to protect the mind, if you're going to shape the mind, the first 6 years, and we are also told that in this period of life, by extension, beyond the first 6 years, between age 4 to 10, this is the time when brain connections occur, the most in the human brain. Between ages 4 to 10 is when people are most able to learn new concepts fastest. So you will find out that particularly things like learning a language, we're told that the average human being can actually learn up to 10 languages in that period of life. We have the capacity. So we are all born with superhuman minds, if you like, from birth until certain things begin to happen. The parts of the mind or the parts of the brain that are not stimulated, that are not used, then begin to die off by themselves. Unused cells begin to prune from age 11, whichever parts of the mind are not being used. So I would say, let's not just talk about protecting the mind. let's also talk about optimizing the minds of these children to capacity. And where I want us to start from this evening is to realize the critical stage of life when you do this. Age 0 to 6, by extension, age 0 to 10, 11, 12, you still have chances. There's a reason why globally everybody says adult suffrage is 18 years. It's based on neuroscience, it's based on science. It's based on science that by the time somebody is 18 years old, by the time they get out of those teenage years, that individual is more or less formed. It becomes more difficult to change anything as far as the mind is concerned. So that's where I want us to start from this evening. The scripture that says, for those of us that are conversant with the Bible passage that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not be able to depart. That scripture also has its root in science, because science now tells us that the longer a child has been exposed to a particular experience or a particular way of thinking or a particular environment, particularly in these first 6-10 years of life, the more difficult it will be to reverse that, way of thinking that has already taken place. Is much more difficult. So when we talk about, so this should make us more sensitive, more, I don't want to say scared, as to really guarding those minds in this period. Because the more we expose them, or we allow them to be exposed to certain content, to certain messages, to certain things, after a while, by the time they enter into the teenage years, is more difficult. So you see why teenagers seem to be a difficult, quote and unquote, set of people. Because that you will have a great teenager, the work starts from before the teenage years. You don't wake up when the child is now a teenager, when the mind has already been formed and is actually just cementing. Now the blocks have been laid. The work starts from when you think they are playing, from when you think they know nothing, from when they're watching that cartoon and they're listening to that music everywhere, dancing to everything that is playing on air, and you are thinking, leave him, let her dance, let him dance, let her watch, doesn't matter. You don't realize that those things at those stage when you are saying they are too young are the things that are actually forming, internalizing the things that we now begin to have. They are exposed to certain to particular content, good or bad. So this can be taken from whatever perspective. Whatever you want to see, whatever you want to see, it starts from that window, those first years. Because once there's repetition is in the brain connections, as far as that experience or that information or that exposure is concerned, it is almost impossible to reverse it. If it's a good thing, it's difficult to reverse. If it's a bad thing, it's difficult to reverse. We're told also that personal moral, so character is decided in the first 6 years of life. Personality is 85% set in the first 6 years of life. Then we're told that by the time they enter into the teenage years, by age 13, personal moral foundations concerning values, morality, truth are difficult to change after age 13. So you see that the work really is not in the teen years, if you permit me to say. If we do a good job of guarding our children's minds in the childhood, but in the early childhood stage of life, and by extension, the childhood stage of life, then ideally, whatever you now see in the teenage years are like your report card of what you've done in the first 12 years, and are more or less set. So when we talk about values, okay, whether it's good to cheat in exams or it's not good to cheat in exam, morality, whether it's good premarital sex is good or it's not good, sexual lifestyle, all those kinds of moral foundations, we are told that once they've not been taken care of before age 13, they are very difficult to change afterwards. So I think this is a good premise, a good place for us to start from, realizing the power of the human mind and when it is most powerful. So if you don't want your child dressing, let's take, for example, ideology on dressing, that a girl will wear skimpy clothes, showing all her cleavage and showing all her laps, or that you don't want a girl to do so. Let me take it the other way around. If you don't want your teenager to end up walking on the streets half naked, that work is not, you don't do that. So it's not when the girl is a teenager that you start controlling what she's wearing. From when she's a child, from when she's a little girl. That is when you begin to shape her mind and her culture as far as dressing, as far as how she presents herself. That's when it starts. Because if you start from then by the time she's a teenager, you won't need to follow her around or chase her on what to wear. Automatically, you have programmed her from the beginning. Still talking about the power in the first years or the early years of life or foundational years of life. I say to people, you know, especially when I'm talking to like maybe junior church teachers, that if all the information that I just gave concerning how much power there is in the childhood stage of life, particularly the early childhood stage of life, and by extension, you know, before the preteen years of life, that then, and if you follow it up with the passage that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, then I will usually ask this question, that if you were the devil out to pull somebody down or how to wreck a life, then where would you be active in that life? And we know that of whatever the devil may be, he's not stupid, he's wise. Then it's clear that the devil does not work. I don't think the devil is on adults. I don't think the devil attacks adults. He doesn't have to attack adults. Whatever you and I, the mindsets that are holding us back, that are holding us down, those habits, all those baggages that don't allow us to fulfill potential, are things that have been programmed or not programmed in our minds from even before we became aware of ourselves, from the first 6 years of life, first 12 years of life. So it is at that stage that everything that can attack or pull down or bring down a human life, it is in those years that that groundwork is done. And then, like another passage will say, then the enemy can walk away because he has sown tears when he knows that surefire, those seeds will germinate. So if the strategy is, and it is so with anything that we want people to become, you focus on the first years and you are able to pollute the mind in those early years, childhood years, go to sleep. Go to sleep is almost irreversible, except by divine intervention. I think personally, that is why it is adults that need deliverance ministers, because we really need power to pull down the things that have been done. Because automatically, whatever has been sown into the mind in the first years of life, in the childhood years of life, will play out, almost except God intervenes. So this is the period we need to know that we really need to pay attention to, as far as guarding children's minds or guarding the minds of our children are concerned. Let's focus there. I'll share a quote. I know that I'm in the second part of my time now. I'll share a quote by somebody called George Barna. And George Barna is a Christian researcher. And he said this, and it just stuck with me. He said he was talking about, and I'm sure many people have had this discussion before, that if you consider the number of religious people in Nigeria, you know, everybody goes to church, everybody goes to mosque. Why is the country not getting better? Let's bring it closer home, because I know that family minders are faith conveners, they're people of faith. Let's bring it closer home. Let's talk about the number of people that attend church every Sunday, the number of people that go to this mountain, Holy Ghost service, power must change hands, this camp, that camp, the other camp, in their millions. That if we have such number of people that profess to be Christians, why don't we see change in our society? And I think the quote by this gentleman speaks to that. And this is what he said. He says, Christians do not act like Jesus. That's number one. And it's ironic because the people that were called Christians, the name came from the fact that the first set of followers were seen to be behaving like him. But today, unfortunately, we see that Christians don't act like Christ. Why? He said, because they do not think like Christ. Christians don't act like Christ, like Jesus, because they do not think like Jesus. Then you will ask, why don't they think like Jesus? And he goes on to say, they do not think like him because nobody cared enough about their spiritual contours when they were young to intentionally and comprehensively train their minds to fully know, embrace, and carry out God's principles, having their worldview intentionally shaped to completely reflect foundational scriptural teachings. So there are some words that jump out there. Somebody, there has to be a responsible adult that cares enough about the mind at the time when it matters most, when they are young. And this adult or adults must be intentional about that mind shaping, and they must be comprehensive about that mind training. So it's not automatic that because people go to church or people feel Christianity informs, or even children are taken to church every Sunday, in and out, teenagers. I'm sure you've seen teenagers in my work many, many times. You see teenagers, they've been in church all their lives, yet they live dual lives. They act, they pretend, they play the part that you want to see in church, and then outside of church, in school and everywhere else, there's something else. It's all in the mind. And so we have to be intentional, not just about protecting their minds, but about shaping and building their minds. But let's even talk a bit about the protection, because that is what we're asked to talk about. Protection. Why do we need to protect our children's minds? You know, I think that it is also, has already been said, that it is the mind that brings about the behavior. If you, the word, there's an extension word that comes from mind, and that word is called mindset. How we think. How you think. How you think is how you will live. And our mindsets are a product of many things, a number of things. Yes, there's the input of genetics, but a lot of research has shown, you know, globally, that between nature and nurture always supersedes nature. In other words, if somebody is behaving a certain way and we say, who do we blame? Is this that the person got this behavior from his parents, it runs in the family, or was it as a result of upbringing and exposure? All the research over the years done in different parts of the world all agree that upbringing and exposure experience overruns your genetics. So mindset, how we think, how people think, how our children and teenagers think, largely rests on what we expose them to or what we allow them to be exposed to. How are mindsets formed? Ideas are transmitted. The process starts with, there's a source of information that this mind is being exposed to. There's a source that is transmitting ideas into this mind through words continuously being spoken or images continuously being seen. So you want to protect the minds of children, you have to track all the sources. We have to have, you know, we have to keep watch of all the sources where information is coming to them, where ideas are being transmitted to them. So ideas, mindset, the process of mindset formation, a source. So the question is, what is that source? A source it begins from a source transmitting ideas through words, through images that now become thoughts in the mind of this individual or this child. These thoughts become ideas. The ideas, when an idea now has remained with you for a while, it becomes what we call ideology, meaning it's more ingrained. An ideology also, when time breathes on it, after a period of time, becomes a belief, or what we call a belief system, becoming more difficult also to disengage. After a while, beliefs become convictions, meaning I am sold out on this, I am sure about this, nobody can tell me otherwise. So you see that as you graduate, it becomes more difficult to change. When something is at the stage of just idea, words and images at a source, you can switch it off, you can destroy it and whatever. But by the time it has gotten internalized to thought, at that point of thought, you can also still dislodge before it becomes an idea. If it is not tackled at that point, it becomes an ideology. If it's still not dealt with, and then it becomes a belief, then it becomes a conviction, then it becomes a philosophy. And I'm sure we all know that we all have philosophies of life. Think automatic programming, automatic belief systems that we live our lives by, you know, and sometimes we don't even know that we have them. Philosophy started as ideas that they didn't just become philosophies. They started as words and images that were transmitted, and then over time passed Wow, I was thrown out. I don't know what was the last thing you heard.
Okay, so you were talking about ideas leading to ideologies, leading to beliefs, leading to convictions, and then philosophies.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so I was saying that, of course, where we have the greatest power is not when something has become my lifestyle that you want to change it. It's not when it has become my philosophy, I'll be arguing with you. It is from tracking making sure ab initio from the beginning that I am getting my thoughts from the correct source. So the question in mind protection or mind forming or mind shaping is what are the sources that are feeding your children's minds? It's easy to just jump and point at media, social or traditional. It's easy to jump and point the finger when we're talking about this matter of mind protection. It's easy for everybody to first of all start shouting social media, internet. But the truth of the matter is that yes, because this generation, they are digital natives, they were born into the net, and is a strong shaper of and molder of their minds, is not the only source where they get information from. So the important thing, to track what we've said so far is that there is a time to protect this mind. There is a time when your protection will have the biggest effects from birth. Take, for example, when my daughter was born, part of my the research that the information that I got in my early years in early childhood education was the fact that the American Academy of Pediatricians say that they are against children below age 2 being exposed to television. So you can still on their website. So the American Academy of Children Doctors all say screen viewing, TV viewing is a total no-no for children below age 2. That at that stage of life, it doesn't really help their mental development, that what the focus should be on activity-based and things that have to do with human interaction, not them looking at the screen. Because I got that information, I particularly did not invest in buying all the cartoons and things in those first 2 years. Rather, we spent, we focused more on reading to her, reading that. Now she's really very, very strong as far as in the literary skills, whether it's talking or reading or asking anything literary, she's really good with them. And then in choosing her crèche at that time too, I chose the crèche that didn't have a B. I wasn't looking for television in the crèche. So you see what I mean. So even from below age 2, for example, pediatricians say that one source that should not be feeding the child's mind is television. The primary source of information for a toddler, 0 to 2, it shouldn't be television or screen. So don't be so quick to be giving your phone to your toddler, to be giving your phone. You say, this is what she's watching, that is watching, but that is not the best source of information of shaping that mind at that stage of life. If you want to know more about why pediatricians say no to TV viewing before age 2, go and do that research on your own. But that's one. But what I'm saying is that yes, they are digital natives. They are born with laptops on their laps if we allow them. But the internet is not the only information source or the only idea source that you need to watch. There are others. Number one, who are the friends? Your children's friends, your child's friends. We know the adage that says, show me your friend and I will tell you who you are. Because especially when they are now getting into the teenagers, we are told that teenagers are raised by parents, not parents, meaning that they listen more to their friends than their parents, except the parents that is able to effectively now change gear from being parents authoritative to being to camouflage as a friend, to be more like a friend, than your traditional authoritative parent, authoritarian, sorry, not authoritative. So for children, friends are a major source of ideas. especially for teenagers at the teenage stage. You will be saying one thing at home. It is what their friends, you need to also check what their friends, is not enough that you are saying something to your child. You need to check who are the friends, who are the parents of their friends, what do the parents of their friends also stand for, so that you are not saying sexual abstinence to your child and then all the friends she's surrounded with, they don't believe in sexual abstinence. Their own voices will be louder. So who are the friends are a major source of mind, information, ideas into your child. Books. What books? Again, first of all, the books that you are buying before they start buying their own. You can be intentional about the books you want to be buying. You can be intentional about the books you want them to be reading from when you begin to buy. I remember when I was growing up, my dad used to buy a lot of detective novels. Nancy Drew or St. Clair's, or stories of girls in boarding house and things like that, and in Blighting, famous. By so doing, he was directing us as to which kind of information we should be leaning towards. And on the other side also, you know, my mom, she was big on biblical things, you know, anything scriptural and all that. So books are also a major idea source. And remember, ideas or thoughts are the foundation of what will now become. So what are the books? And then when they become teenagers, from time to time, we need to check their rooms, check their things, not in a detective way. Remember, you are now a parent, not a parent. You know, your child is reading something. You have to say, what was that? Let me see what you are reading. You can't just walk past. You know, I'm very careful and wary. I will read the back of the book, look at the content, because I can't read the whole book, but I will, you know, try and have an idea what's in the book. Or when she's reading, I will say, oh yeah, tell me about the book. What's the book about? Because in books, ideas are being transmitted. Ideas. Then of course, movies. It's not enough for a teenager to get up and say, I'm going to the movie with my friends on her own or on his own. Even if you have all the money in the world and then driver will drop. I need to know what movie. They should be chaperoned. There was a time my daughter came and said during the holiday and said she and her friends want to go to the cinema. And there was no parents to follow them. I said, well, it's either me, I follow you people, or you cannot go alone. I think maybe there are like 10 of them, girls and boys. That day, thank God for self-employment. I left everything that I was doing, entered my jeans, and I followed them. I did not follow them and then send them inside the cinema hall. I bought tickets too. I sat with them, you know. After the movie, we talked about the movie and things like that. They are watching TV. You have to, so these are all the sources, magazines, whatever is bringing content, musical appetite. Who are the musical icons that your children are following? What are they dancing to? What are they dancing to? This evening now, you know, I don't want to even mention the song. There's a song that is raining now on the airways in Nigeria, you know, for me. And they're having a party somewhere down my road, and the music is filtering into my house. I told my son, my 5-year-old, I said, don't even try to dance to that song. He said, Mom, is it a good song or is it a bad song? I said, the song is not for you. He said, no, tell me, is it a good bad song? So at least he's already aware that there are good songs and there are bad songs. But for some of us, it's like anything goes. Everybody's dancing, your children are dancing and following. No. So it's not now that she's my first child, for example, that is a teenager. It's not now that I'm telling her what to listen to. Her choice of songs, her choice of books and all that had started, the programming had started before now. Then who feeds your children spiritually? Put an eye. It's important that you know what is going on in the children's church. If your children go to children's church, it's important that you check out the people that are there. What are they teaching them? What material are they using? Who feeds them spiritually? Because those people in children's church, as unassuming as they look, because you know I lead children's church people, I tell them they are the pastors that those children know. They are the pastors that those children see. Apart from you and the teacher in school, those teachers in children's church, they are another set of people that are molding the minds of your children. What they are saying to them every Sunday matters. then who are their role models? If your daughter or your child is cutting out clips of some funny looking somebody on social media, you need to go and find out what does that person stand for? Who is that person? Have that discussion with your teenager, because whatever that those people are saying, they're latching on it. They're latching on who are they following on social media. My time is up, but I hope we're able to get one or two things from what I've said so far. It's important. Yes, this matter of mind protection is critical, because it is from what goes into their minds that becomes their beliefs, their attitudes, the actions that they will take, not only tomorrow, but even from today. I'll round off by saying, take, for example, the matter of sexual abstinence. Everybody knows that, or there's a book I'll recommend. It's called Preparing, is a series. There's Preparing Your Daughter for Every Woman's Battle. There's Preparing Your Son for Every Man's Battle, written by one Shannon Etheridge. And she talks about is on how to, teach children, groom them as far as sexuality issues are concerned. And she, in that book, brings to light the fact that it's not enough that a teenager has not had sex. If that teenager is already watching all sorts, then that teenager is technically not, sexually, is already sexually active in his or her mind. It's just a matter of time for them to actually get the opportunity to do the actual act. So she says in her material that therefore it's not just engaging children, don't go out, don't talk to them. Even under your nose in your house, you have to be sure that your children are not being sexually active by what they are watching, what they are consuming from media and all these other sources that we've talked about. I have to stop now. I will not wait to be passed a sheet of paper. I really do hope that I've been able to say a few things that have made sense, and I'm trusting that the second speaker will add more flesh. And in the questions that we might have, then I'll be able to address one or two things that might come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ma. Wow, that was very informative. And you said way more than a few things. It was really a beautiful time. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned stuff about how the most formative years of a child, that their early years, so from like age 0 to 6, we have to pay attention to our children, because she said something. She said a child's mind is what their behavior would showcase, basically. So a mind of a person is what brings about a person's behavior. So if the mind of your child is formed from his or her formative years, 0 to 6 years, it's a very critical part, right? So if you're a parent here, if you're a child minder, a children's teacher, right, especially when you have children within that age range, we need to be really careful of what we are feeding them with. She spoke about idea sources, and it was really mind-blowing. So you see that our children are not just learning from us, right? I look at my nephews, I look at my niece, and how they pick up things easily from their parents or anyone around. I mean, my nephew, for example, is just about a year plus now, and just a few minutes before this program started, I said something. He doesn't speak very well yet, and I said running boy, and he said momo boy. Basically, he was just trying to imitate what I said. So now he wants to open doors like adults do. He wants to do things like adults do. Our children are always watching, and that's the key thing to learn. There are different idea sources, so they can get it from social media, but that's not all. She mentioned how that even spiritual authorities in their lives, where are they learning from spiritually? She mentioned, their peers, their friends. She also talked to us about how as parents, we need to be parents and not just parents, not authoritarians. Very important. So they also need to see us as their friends, even though we are authority figures in our lives. Thank you so much, Ma. It was a very beautiful session. It was very informative, very enlightening. I mean, that my book is full already, and it's just the first speaker. We are going to take questions after both speakers have, spoken, right? We'll take our questions. But for those of us listening, our participants, I want us to write I want you to write what struck you the most in this first session in the chat box. Remember, I have a gift voucher at the end. So our judges will be looking at the chat box, trying to check which comment appeals the most to them. But really, I want us to just write what struck you the most about this session. I want to see if I can read a few comments before I introduce the next speaker very quickly. Does anybody want to drop a comment? What struck you the most about this session? What did you learn? I can see a lot of claps. Any comment very quickly? Okay, I can see one here. Pay attention to the sources of information and the information your children are exposed to. Yes, very important. Do we have any comments? Okay, Chidima Onyechi says, I learned that the first 6 years of life is very crucial. Yes, the first 6 years of life is very, very, very crucial. Very crucial. Character of an individual is formed in the first 6 years. I mean, that was very enlightening to know that. So the way I am now, it was already formed like when I was really young. Okay, Olukosayo Adam says the quote about Christians not behaving like Jesus because they do not think like Jesus. Yes, I actually wrote that down as well. And she went on to say, why don't they think like Jesus? Because they didn't have anyone to intentionally shape their minds when they were young. That was super deep, yes. Taiwo says, my key takeaway was the fact that we need to watch what our children watch. We should not just leave phones for children to play with. Yes, we need to watch. We also need to read books that they are reading, because these days, the content even in books, sometimes even in books that are supposed to be educational materials, you'll be wondering, is this really age appropriate? So we need to actually look at them as well. What struck me the most was the part where she said children shouldn't be exposed to TV at 0 to 2 years. I know, right? I know, because I'm like, how many of us have really obeyed that? But it's good to learn so that we can, adjust our behavior. So one of the things we pride ourselves in Family Minders is the fact that we learn, we unlearn, and we are relearning. So every meeting, every session is an avenue to learn. Okay, thank you for the comments. Please keep dropping them. I will introduce our next speaker very briefly. Mrs. Olayinka Egbe, CA Nigeria, CISA, CFE, CIA. She has a background with Deloitte Nigeria, and she left in 2005 as audit, HR, and operations partner. Wow. So she's currently working in Canada as an audit portfolio manager. She's a mother to numerous children. She loves God and is passionate about teaching the word of God. So without further ado, you're welcome, Mrs. Olayinka. Please let's welcome her. Let's drop our comments to welcome her.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a very good foundation. Thank you, my sister. It's interesting that we both had a flint with Deloitte. When I read her bio, I heard that she had a flint with Deloitte. And building on what she has said, she's actually laid a very good foundation for every one of us. If you read about Aristotle said something. He said, give me a child for 7 years and I'll give you a man forever. So to that foundation that she laid about the importance of a child, of the mind of a child at an early age and building on it, it is very critical and it is very important for all of us to know about it and to work at it. Now, some of us might actually be thinking that my child is already too old. I missed the first 6 years. And you're thinking that all is lost. No, hope is not lost. I hope I'm not speaking too fast. I'm trying to work with time because there's just so much to say. I'll take it from the biblical context, in the book of Judges, chapter 13, verses 1 to 14, we read a story about how Samson was born. And one thing that struck me when I read that verse, when I was preparing for this for this event was the fact that the parents went back to ask the angels, how do we train this child? Yeah, you've told us that we're going to give birth to a child. The Lord, they went back to ask, how do we train this child? And a lot of us miss this. The joy of having a child, the joy of pregnancy, we never prepare for it. We never prepare for how this child will grow up. We never ask the Lord, this gift that you're giving unto me, this resource that you are giving unto me, how do I keep it? What will be, the learning point? What should I do? What are the do's and don'ts? There's a lot that has been said that I would not want to repeat. My sister said something. She talked about training up a child that we see in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs. It says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. You wonder why the word train was used. When we look at a train, you have a train and you have the coach and it moves along the rail track. Why was that word used, that train up a child? It is because the children learn a lot from us. Our own lives as parents will affect them. From what my sister said, what we do even before they were born, what we do after they were born, and how we coach them, it determines a lot about their mind. Like we said, as a man thinketh, so is he. When a child is born, what was your expectation for that child? Was it just to spoil and pamper the child? Some of us coming from Africa, we come from, let me use the word, if you do not mind, use the word that we think we do not have a lot of privilege. And so we say, when I have a child, I'll give him everything I did not get when I was growing up. It is important to know that this is a relative term. We do not really know where to draw the line. And so sometimes we find out that we over pamper these children. Sometimes we expose them to things that they should not be exposed to. When a train, still using that verse of scripture, when a train derails, you find out that when the engineers are called to the train tracks, what they do is that they go back, they do not go to that place where the train actually drops away. They go down the path and look at where on the tracks, where something went wrong. Some of us may have to go down the track and see where we missed it. And we need to correct what we have done. We need to, you might think it's difficult, but with the help of God, I tell you, nothing is impossible. Some of us are looking at what we have, we're living in such a situation that we have become strangers to our children. And we are talking about the minds of these children. What is actually going on in their mind? What are we feeding them? They are learning from what has been said. They are learning from all that. They are learning from everything that is being fed to them. The Bible says there are many voices and none is without significance. Every voice, everything, they are processing it and they will soon act it out. We have seen videos on TikTok of children, with the effect of a CTV. A brother is beating the younger brother because of what he has been exposed to. Before I left Nigeria, I had a fellowship that I started before I even got married. And one day I asked the children, I said, what kind of movies do you like watching? And it's interesting. I'm also involved in the children's church. It's interesting what you get to learn from these children. It's interesting what they tell you about what they've been exposed to. And some of the children were saying, cartoons, Tom and Jerry, this. And this particular family, the children said, they actually watch blue movies. They watch, that's what they've been exposed to at such an early age. And when you sometimes you find out that these children act out what they have seen. In life, it affects them. So today we are talking about the mind, how to protect the minds of these children. What has happened to the family altar? Let us start from there. What has happened to the family altar? A lot of family altars are broken down. A lot of us have walked in ignorance for so many years. This forum, the family minders, we're talking about family. It all started in the book of Genesis. Let's take it back to the book of Genesis. when man fell, there was enmity that was spoken between the woman and the woman's seed and the enemy. That's the devil. And we find it plays out every time. The enemy is always after that seed. And that is, I cannot overemphasize what that has done, because a lot of times we live in ignorance, or we choose to live in ignorance. We choose to ignore certain things that are very key. We seem to be very busy. The Bible also tells us, it says, do not be ignorant of the devices of the enemy. We should not walk in ignorance. We should not take for granted these things that we hear, these things that the Spirit is pointing out to. You know, we live in, most of us on this forum, most of us we have African heritage. We lay a lot of emphasis on enemies, on praying against the enemies, praying. I'm not saying that enemies do not exist, but the enemy of our soul is actually the devil. Some of us are not worried about, we are not concerned about our children's life, about their spiritual lives, about them knowing the Lord, about them growing in the Lord, about them walking in the Lord. When we read in the book of Matthew, chapter 28, Jesus Christ was saying something when he was leaving. He said, these signs shall follow them that believe in me. We pay attention to that. But there was something that was said there that's also very critical. He said, teaching them to obey everything I have told you. It is very important to teach about what the Lord has taught us, to teach our children. A lot of parents, even in this part of the world where I am in Canada, a lot of us struggle with children. A lot of parents are working end to end they are working to make ends meet, to pay their bills. And we do not realize that this has affected our relationship with our children. We have exposed our children, my sister said it right, to get away from, the business of life. You are very busy in the kitchen as a mother. You are trying to make ends meet. It's very easy to give your phone to your child. Once you give that child that phone, you have the peace of mind. But let us go back. Let us look at what we have done and what we should have done. And let us come back and correct those ways. The mind of these children is very important. It is very important to pass on that legacy, that these children need to know the Lord. Let us, their life is so important. Like I said, Samuel's parents went to ask, how do I train up this child? What do we do with this child? Then the angel gave them specific instruction that do this, you should abstain from this, then you wonder, how come Samuel then ended up with Delilah? A lot of us think these things are fictions. We think, we cannot make this kind of mistakes, but we are being absorbed by the things of this world. It's very easy for you and I to plan our lives, but except the Lord. The Lord said, without me, you can do nothing. We sometimes refuse to bring God into our lives, into our jobs, concerning our children. Like I said, the family altar is broken. The father is going out, the mother is coming in. We are so consumed by what is happening in life that we don't even study the Bible anymore. A lot of us, we take counsel from, the psychologist of this world. But the real manual that comes with us is the word of God. It says in Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, this book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but thou shalt meditate on it day and night, so that you may observe to do according to what is written in it. We need to observe to do according to what is written in it. Wherever we have missed it, let us go back to what things should be. Wherever we are struggling, let us go back to what things should be. We need to banish anxiety. Some of the children suffer from anxiety. The anxiety because we've created so many expectations. We come from an African society. We compare children. This one is a doctor. What are you doing? But some of these things we need to go back to God and ask God, what would you have these children do? What would you have them study? Where would you have them study? The Bible says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. We need to lead by examples. Like I said, I am a teacher in the children's church. There was a day in Canada we were talking, and like I said, children tell you so many things. And this child was crying, and I was like, what happened? She said, Auntie, my family and I took a stroll. My mother's sister, we took a stroll in our neighborhood. And a child had left their bicycle, on the playground. And my mom says I should pick it up and take it in. And I said, no, the child will come. But they started beating me. So I had to that is a child. That's the innocence of that child. That memory did not leave that child. He was crying in church. What are you exposing your child to? Let's be factual about it. Is it that when calls come in and you don't want to take the call, you tell the child, tell them I'm not at home? You are teaching the child how to lie. Like the first speaker spoke, a lot of things. We are speaking into the lives of these children. We are speaking into their destiny. Some of us are speaking racism into the lives of these children. You have told them, these people do not like you. We have poisoned the minds of children. These things should not be so. As Christians, we should not be so. As a family, the role of the father, the role of the mother, the role of the children, do they have certain things that they do in the house? Let's take it to the bit. We are building the minds of these children. We are protecting their mind. We are making them, responsible citizens of a nation. The first speaker spoke about the fact that, yes, we are Christians, but we do not think like Christ. How did Christ think? Did he discriminate? Was he abusive? In his mindset, how did he live? There's a book that was written by this guy that I love his book. He says, The Jesus I Never Knew. A lot of times we need to realize that even when men are not watching, that God is watching. We need to tell our children about household chores. We need to lay a perfect example. We need to lead a perfect example. Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians, I think it was chapter 13, he says, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I reasoned like a child. He says, but now I live the childish ways. So a child is expected to be a child. I tell people that. A child is expected to be a child. When you deprive them of that childhood, they will act it out when they are older. Some of the problems we have in the world today are being done by men that never lived as a child. They were deprived of that. So you see a man that is being managed by so many people, controlling a country, yet himself is acting like a child. And we can see it in the life of Solomon. If you read all the kings in the Bible, a lot of them had prophets. A lot of them had prophets that spoke to their lives. Solomon was one person that did not have any prophet. And you see how it played out. Yes, he had wisdom, but yet there was nobody that was speaking to his life. As parents, we have a duty. We have a duty that we will give an accounting of these children, of their lives, of the resources that God has given unto us. It is important for you and I to know the role we play in the lives of these children, that we are also their prophets. First of all, before they were born, and now that they are born, we are to play the role of a prophet. We are supposed to speak into their lives. We're supposed to lead by example. We're supposed to do things that the children will be able to emulate us. Are you doing something and asking them to do otherwise? It won't work that way. The Bible says there was a time Dinah, Jacob's daughter, went to play with the children of the land, went to play with the daughters of the land, and she was defiled. Are we allowing our children to just play with the children of the land? Are we allowing our children, we just believe that, yes, they should express themselves. There's nothing wrong with them, but children need boundaries. Sometimes we don't give those boundaries. There are no boundaries. And a child, you don't need to teach a child. Some of these things, they act it out and you wonder why. Because if you don't give them boundaries, they will, even if when you give them boundaries, they try to stretch it. When we were starting this program, our sister said something. She said she has a gift card, I think, and she said people will play about it. Now, people trust that word. When you tell a child, do not touch that thing. If you touch it, this will be the punishment. Do you actually act it out, or you excuse yourself? These are things that are very important. You have to create boundaries and you have to act it. Because if you do not act it out, when they stretch those boundaries, they will believe that the boundaries are meant to be broken. And then you see them like men breaking laws and thinking they can get away with it. So the Bible says Dinah went to play with the children of the land. Why did she go and play with the children of the land? She went to play with the children of the land and she was defiled. When we play with the children of the land, we will be defiled. The Bible says in Psalm 1, it says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of the sinners, nor sits with those that mock. The mind of the child is so precious, needs to be protected from ungodly association. It needs to be protected from ungodly ideas. Our sister has talked about how ideologies are made, how patterns are made, how they form a man. But we need to realize that it has to start from somewhere. It is important also to realize that in the process of time, even when Dinah was defiled, it affected the whole family. It affected every. So when some of these things that we allow our children to do, all with the excuse of being accepted, we have to realize that our role as parents cannot, it's something that the Lord believes that we are capable of doing it. That's why it's a blessing. We have to act out that role. We have to live that role. We have to live by example. If you look at the book of Genesis chapter 3, when that curse was made between the seed of the woman and the serpent, and then you look at the book of Revelations chapter 12 also, you find that the woman is always battling. There's always a battle for the soul of the child. There's a battle for the mind of the child. And so we need to nurture these children. We need to tell them the truth. We need to speak the truth. We need to live the truth. They need to see it in us. In Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 to 8, the Bible, Jesus Christ was telling us that it is good to have children. He says they are sensitive. He said, they are a gift from God. But he said, anyone that causes any one of these children to sin, he said it would have been better if that person was never born. Now, I ask myself, the ones that the Lord has given unto me, the ones that come to church, have I led any one of them to sin? Have I encouraged them to sin? We should ask ourselves these questions. He says it is better for that person not to be born. He says it is better for the person to look for a millstone and hang on their neck. I'm not saying anyone should go and commit suicide. But what I'm saying is it shows you the level of responsibilities that you and I have been called to do. Sometimes we think we are not. In those days in Africa, we believe that we are neighbors' keepers. But nowadays, you don't want to hear anything about your children. You are not concerned about them. Everything, we have parents that are so absorbed about themselves. And this is a call back to the reality that God is calling you and I back to do what he has asked us to do. He's calling you and I back to remember all that he has said. He said, anyone who hears these words of mine and does it, that not only that you've listened, you've heard, you obey it and you carry it out. He said, it shall be like a man that builds his house on a rock. What are you building your house on? What are you building your life on? What are you building your family on? A lot of parents struggle. Single parents are struggling. A lot of fathers are struggling. So we need to look at, the children are watching you and I. They are watching our own lives. When you are arguing, when you are fighting, what foundation, what example are you laying? When you are cheating on your family, you see, it's very easy for us to sit down here and just talk theory. Speak what Oprah has spoken about. Speak what Dr. No, but let us get to the truth. What are we doing? Are we so absorbed by materialistic things at the expense of the souls of our children? Are we so concerned about their lives that we are teaching them? We would rather deprive ourselves of the luxury. David said something, says, I will not give God anything that does not cost me something. What is it costing you to be a parent? Do we obey, do we obey rules? What time do you resume at work? The children are watching you. What time do you get home? What do you do with office resources? They are watching you. How often do you lie? How often do you cheat? We are talking about, building the mind of these children are going to be leaders now. They're not leaders only of tomorrow. They are leaders now. Because like my sister said, if in the first 6 years of their lives, you don't give them what they need, you are shaping the destiny of these children for evil, except by divine intervention. You understand? It is important that we realize that these children are going to be parents. You and I are parents because of what was handed down to us. What are you handing out to the next generation? When we look at, some of the Bible stories, there's a message that it's been developed. It's called Pause, P-A-U-S-E. Of all the stories that we read in the Bible and all the stories we have read about, just pause before the conclusion of the matter. Just pause and say, now with the benefit of hindsight, that you know what finally happened. What if this person had not taken this decision? Let me give an example. The Bible records that David had a son that was lustfully desired his sister, but he had a friend called Jonadab. Now pause. What if he did not have a friend called Jonadab? What if he did not carry out Jonadab's instruction? So before we act, before we do it, let us pause and look at what will be the end of the story. When David, the Bible says there was a time when kings went for war, but David decided to stay back. Pause. What if David had not stayed back? What if David really did not go to the balcony and saw Bathsheba having a bath? Pause a while. What if David did not send Uriah to his death? So in a lot of ways, looking at the mind of our children, we need to pause before we take that decision. I've seen a lot of international children come all the way from Nigeria and other nations come to Canada. They bring a lot of things. They bring a lot of devices. Some of them are coming with the latest phone gadget. They come with most of them don't even have a Bible. Most of them don't even have the manual for life. And parents excuse themselves from this. It is very important that we realize that it is the children need to learn. If their child is going to church, you don't even give them offering. How are they going to be leaders tomorrow? When there's a problem, the children are watching you. How do you resolve that problem? How do you react in the face of a crisis? What kind of counsel do you give your child? Do you encourage the child to cheat? Do you encourage the child to manipulate? Do you excuse yourself? You are talking about protecting the mind of this child. Now I live in Canada. I think some years, even before COVID hit, there was legalization of cannabis. And I think we have the same problem in Nigeria. We have the problem of drug addiction. Are you a parent that encourages it? I've seen some parents that encourage it. But what foundation are you laying for the future? The Bible says concerning Abraham, the Lord made Abraham, he said, because I know he will teach his children my way. The Lord did not keep anything from Abraham. He revealed things to him. Are you teaching your children the way of the Lord? Are you protecting them? Do you encourage them to go to church? Do you encourage them to study the word? Do you encourage them to live the word? Do you encourage them when there's a problem? Do you encourage them to forgive? Do you encourage them to show mercy to others? These are, they might be very small things, but they matter a lot. The kind of of things the children, the kind of things the children are seeing us do, they act it out. Are you telling the children to read? Meanwhile, you don't read. My sister talked about some music. I don't know. Thankfully, she did not tell us the lyrics of that song. But what kind of song are you listening to? Because they are watching. They are watching. Household chores. Who does the household chores? Are you teaching them how to? There are some children, I tell you, there's some children that can't do household chores. We're talking about the mind of the child. They are watching. They are seeing what you're doing. Sometimes some children know how you treat the lady that comes into the house. They know how you treat people. They are watching you. And sometimes they act it out against us. You see, their life is such that the way you and I live may actually affect, it will actually affect their future. Because sometimes the children, it will model them into the kind of person they marry. They are either attracted to you to say, I want someone like my mother or someone like my father or my parents. I've had children tell me that. I've had, teenagers say, my parents, I do not want someone like my mother. I do not want someone like you've seen a lot of young men marrying people from other nationalities. That's because they know that, I don't want nagging. I know my parents are too materialistic. Everything is about money. They are watching. And let's be honest with ourselves. The Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence. The other place where diligence is used, it says, see thou a man diligent in his ways. He will sit before kings and not mean men. Protect your heart, because out of it are the issues of life. How do you treat the beggar on the street? How do you treat the security man? How do you treat the maid? We're talking about protecting the mind of the child. It is very important that we realize that these children, it's like you have a garden. You have sown the seed. How do you water? It is God that gives the increase, but what are you putting there? What are you sowing into the lives of the children? What's your legacy? What legacy are you giving your children? What foundation are you giving? What example are you giving? Can they say that that you are leading by a good example? Are you sure that that what the life you are living is such that will stand the test of time? That down the line, your children can say that, yes, we were brought up, that we were brought up very well. I'll give an example. I don't know if the parent is online. I had a young man that came to me from Nigeria. The mother was my colleague, and they said, this boy is coming to study in Canada. He needed a place on vacation, and he came. This boy was, I've said it so many times, this boy was well brought up. He was well brought up. He was disciplined. I've seen young ladies live with me. They are disciplined. There are people that are disciplined, that will not, they will not soil their garments. They will not soil their robes. There are people that once they leave Murtala Mohammed Airport, they have freedom and they are exposed. We need to guard their hearts to the extent that when they leave, they act good. Like my sister said it. Sometimes they pretend. We talk about it. Sometimes when they leave Nigeria, that is the last about the church. They don't have anything to do with God anymore. There are children that have been deported. There are children that are in crisis. There are children that are in addiction. What legacy are you leaving? This boy stayed with me for a few weeks. In a few weeks, he will take care of himself. When his result, he said he was concerned that his first result was going to come out, and he didn't know how he did. Tell you, my brethren, the least he got was an A-. He was well grounded. The parents had no fear. He would walk, he would, and then you have children. It does not really matter the where you send this child, because the foundation is grounded. And that was what my sister spoke about. And that is why you and I need to protect the minds of our children. We need to let them know the truth. We need to also pray over them. It is critical, but sometimes we overlook it as it doesn't matter. We are so concerned about the way they look physically, about the dress they are wearing, the designer share, the way they speak, the way the school they went. But the mind itself, we are not concerned. And that is why this program is important. We need to realize that a child is not just a fixture. We need to nurture that child so that even when they fall, they can come up again. We need to tell them that, yes, you can make mistakes, but you can come back again. We need to let them know that, we need, sometimes I think it's I don't know whether it's African, but because I'm an African, I'll talk about that. Sometimes we keep so many things away from our children. And it's affected us as in the church as well. That we believe that when somebody gives their life to Christ, they should not go through some challenges. No. The Bible says, Jesus Christ said, he said, in this world, you will have tribulation. It is part of life. But we need to tell them that they can pick up. Sometimes we've protected them from reality. And so that when they face disappointment, they don't know how to cope. And sometimes they find themselves, if we don't speak the truth, they will hear it from somewhere. They will hear the wrong voice from somewhere else. It is important that we tell them the truth. Tell them about how to manage money. Tell them about what happens when things go wrong. Yes, mommy and daddy we did not agree on this, but this is how we resolved it. Tell them about, the fact that you go to a work environment, not everybody would agree with you, but this is how you resolve it. As a mother, your children, do they see you on your knees? Do they see you talk about, what happened in this situation and how you took it to God? And how, when the solution, did you come back to that, tell them that, see what God has done? Can your child actually say that, yes, I have a family? Family is not a place where we only smile. We have to tell the children that there are tears. As sometimes you find yourself as a single parent. There are some people on the line that are in our midst that are single parent. How do you cope? We need to let the children know that sometimes we are vulnerable. And when we correct ourselves, we go back to the cross. Jesus Christ died with his arms open, not closed, inviting everybody to come back. Wherever we have stepped away, wherever we have strayed away, there's still a way back to the cross. Sometimes, we need these children to learn the truth. We need them to know that, yes, things hurt, that people disappoint. There was a day I went to get a phone. I had to get a phone, and this guy was telling me, all this marketing. I don't have anything against marketing people, please. And he was telling me, making all these promises, and he said, "You can trust me." And I told him, I said, "Look, you're a human being like myself. You're trying to sell. I don't trust you. I know, yes, you've said this, but I don't trust you. The only person I trust is Jesus. Simple." And my children were like, "Mom, no, what he's trying to say is that," I said, "I know, but I'm just telling him the truth. I don't trust him." And true to it, when I got home, I called them to activate the phone or activate the line. And some of the things he said were not actually the truth. So they told me, the person I spoke with on the line told me to go back to him and, correct certain things. So I went back to him. I said, "You know why I said it yesterday? I told you that I don't trust you. You're a human being." We need to let the children know that men make promises. It's not as if they don't desire to do it, but sometimes they do not because they are men. We need to let them know that when you are vulnerable, there's a way of escape. Use it. We need to be able to tell the children that always tell the truth. That you don't need to keep, you don't need to have a hard mind trying to remember what you have said if you are telling the truth. The truth is the truth. We need to live our lives knowing fully well that we ourselves, we have a mind. And it's not a matter of, I just changed my mind. We need to protect these children. They are sensitive, but we need to protect them by telling them the truth. And the Lord said, He says, I am the truth. Let them know the Lord. Let them know the Lord. Let the family values, let the family altar be built. I'm rounding up. Let them know their boundaries. When you have said they'll be disciplined for this, let the discipline follow. Let them learn to fellowship with one another. Let them learn to love. Let them learn to love, regardless of race, regardless of tribe, let them learn to love. Let them know that, I tell people that, you see, God is fully responsible for the consequences of your obedience. When you obey, it's not necessary that human beings will repay you in the same gesture or will do the same thing you expect them to do. But God will repay you, you understand, in a manner and in a way in which He only can repay you. Let them tell them about your experience. Sometimes I tell my children what I have gone through in life. And I tell them, things were not always this way. But they need to know, because they will walk. It's always good when you have walked the path. Make it easier for them when they are walking that path to say, look, things might not come out this way, but at the end of the road, it's always better when you persevere. Let them know that the hard work pays. A lot of times, what we live in a generation where you have 20,000 followers, and because of that, they make money. It's not always like that. I want us to please, if we do not say this, we have done ourselves a disservice. Let us go back down the track and see where we missed it. Let us amend our ways. Let us bring back the family altar. Let us bring back prayers into our homes. Let mothers be mothers. Make your children breakfast. Make them lunch. Make them dinner. Respect your husband. Be humble. The children are watching. Work. Don't believe in easy money. Please, don't believe in easy money. It's never a good way. Nothing good comes easy. And I pray that the Lord will bless every one of us as we have listened. And indeed, we'll be doers of this word. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ma. That was very insightful. That was very helpful to us. Okay, so right about now, we're going to be taking questions and comments from everything that we have learned, our key points, and basically comments from everything that we have spoken about today. So if you have questions, please, you can drop them in the chat box so that I would read it out, and then our speakers can answer very briefly. But yes, I also want us to drop our learning points from this session, right? So please drop your learning points from this session in the comment section. For me, one thing that struck me was the fact that parents are their children's prophets, right? We are constantly speaking over the life of your children. So what words are you saying to your children? You are constantly speaking in your direction, in correction and in correcting them, in reprimanding them, even you are just knowing you are speaking words. So what kinds of words are we speaking over our children? It's very important that we are very deliberate about the kind of words that we say, right? So my colleague a few days ago was talking about how she was talking to her 4-year-old child. And so she comes to work every day. She gives us, gist about this child. And, for a for a 4-year-old, he speaks a lot of grammar that, sometimes I'm like, where is he learning all this? Okay, this boy must be smart. So she was basically telling him, go and have your bath. Go and have your bath. Go and have your bath. And she kept on saying it, and he wasn't going, he wasn't obliged. And I think she raised her voice and said, Jai, go and have your bath. And then he says, Mom, are you okay? And she was shocked, right? She was shocked. And then she was like, why would you say that? But in deep reflection, of course, she tried to correct the child and all of that, what parents generally do. But in deep reflection, she thought about that. This boy was basically just saying things I have said in the past, right? He's just really picking up from what I have said. So it's very important, that we are deliberate about the kind of words we speak over our children, the kind of things we say to them, even say around them, because children are like cotton wool immersed in water. They're constantly absorbing things from the environment, from parents, especially people who they look up to. They are constantly absorbing from them. They are watching you. So you cannot say, do this and you are not doing this. She also mentioned how that we have to be their role models. They look up to us, so we need to lead by example. It's very important. It is not a matter of do what I say, don't do what I do. They are definitely going to do what you do. So you as a parent, you as a childminder, you need to lead by example. Another important point she mentioned was the aspect of prayer, covering our children, praying over our children. What's the place of family altars? Do we have family altars? These are times that that children's ideas, ideologies, beliefs, convictions are formed, right? When they're involved in family altars, you see children of really tender ages already speaking in tongues, right? It's because they have seen their parents do it. They are copying everything we do. So basically, it is important. A lot of us want to send our children now to the Western world, and all of us want to raise our children there. So sometimes, in Africa, we still have all these maybe aunties, things that really ground, children. But how about in the Western world where there's child abuse, your children can report you? How do you ensure that they are still grounded, right? Prayer cannot be overemphasized. It is very important. We also have to lead by example. I want to take a few comments now, and if you have questions, please feel free to drop them. This is the time to, take our questions. We don't want to spend too much of our time. We want to be done by top of the hour. Okay. So David says, don't be so concerned about how they look and appear physically and ignore how they look internally. That's actually really, really deep. Shema says, the legacy we set for our children shapes their character and destiny. Wow, that's so deep. That's so deep. And it's very important. She mentioned about how God knew Abraham and he trusted that he was going to command his children, right, in the way of the Lord. So, our children need to see this legacy, right? Legacy we set for them shapes their character. Stephanie says the importance of the family altar cannot be downplayed even in this fast-paced world. Yes, very important. For people who live in Lagos, and we know how the fast life is, are trying to get to work really early, wake up so early, and before you know it, you're out of the house, you're coming back really late because of traffic. We need to find time for family altar. It is really important. Chineye says, teach our children the way of the Lord. Yes, very important. Olubo Science says there's still hope for children that have gone past the age of 6 or 10. Yes, there's hope. There's hope for our children. Chineye also says, create boundaries for our children and ensure we act on it. Yes, that was one thing that really struck me too. She talked about how Diana went to meet with the people of the land, and she was defiled. And she said, what boundaries do you set for your children? It is really important. They still know you are a parent. So you set boundaries and make sure you act on it. Let them know that you keep to your word so they can trust you when you say something, right? So when you tell them, no, the consequences for this action, they know you're actually going to act on it. Because our children still need these boundaries. They are not mature enough to, face the world on their own. They don't know everything yet. So we need these boundaries. Adenusi Adiola says, the place of systems and structure in our home is very important. Yes. Ezine says, as parents, we should focus on building the mindset of our children, which affect their moral values. Also, we should pay attention to the foundation. Yes, the foundation is very important. She says, also we should be able to live out what we say. Beautiful. I'm loving the comments so far. If we have questions, please do not hesitate to, drop your questions also. Fumilola says, we must not be too busy to be part of our children's lives. Another word for parenting is sacrifice. Yes, she mentioned that. Be ready to sacrifice your time in prayer and teaching them. Thank you so much for that comment. Lara says, children have no eject buttons. They are a mirror in that they see our character, faults and mistakes through them. Okay, in that we see our own character, faults and mistakes through them. So we need to model good behaviors intentionally, yes. So we need to live out the life that we want our children to emulate, basically. Isn't also says, with the advent of technology now, okay, so this is a question, yes. With the advent of technology now, how do we harness it to our advantage in raising godly children, seeing the rot it is causing in children nowadays? So, okay, maybe I will start with Mrs. FC, then maybe Mrs. Yinka too can, pitch in. The question is, with the advent of technology now, how do we harness it to our advantage in raising godly children, seeing the rot it is causing in children of nowadays? Okay, so Mrs. FC.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Can everyone hear me? I'm sorry, I'm on the road now. How can we harness technology considering the downsides to it, isn't it? The truth of the matter is, it's still by us, opening our eyes and ears, being as observant as we can. There are filters. Technology also has created its own, like they said, pencil has eraser. So there are filters now. You can talk to tech people. Your child, first of all, personally, for me, is to delay as much as I can, even exposure. Like I said earlier, they are going to enter. Yes, internet is here to stay, gadgets are here to stay, but my 5-year-old has been begging for a what does it even call it again? What do you call it? Tablets. Can you imagine? 5-year-old, he has been begging, Mom, give me my own tablet. The reason he's saying it is because he sees children his age, having tabs and playing games and whatever, but every parent needs to understand that every parent is going a certain way. It doesn't mean that it's the right way or it's the best way or you must go that way as well. So for me, I delayed gratification in the area of exposure into personal devices as much as possible. So my daughter is 15, we are sharing my phone together. She'll probably get a personal phone, and if she even gets an internet-enabled one, she'll probably get a dumb one for another year. We gave her gadgets, I think at around 13 or 14. If you see all the different groups she was joining, teenagers from all over the world on WhatsApp group, I say, immediately we collected all the gadgets back. And we realized that she was not mature enough. She needed more orientation and understanding on how to manage that level of privacy. 2 to 3 years down the line, she's a lot more social media intelligence and looking like somebody that you can entrust with that. Because, when they are behind those screens or with those gadgets, it's a certain level of privacy. Yes, some things with filters and all, but there are some things that really you can't tell who they're engaging in. So delay gratification as much as possible. And then when the time to have this, if they are doing homework and things like that, you have to monitor, and then no gadgets. There must be time limit in terms of how long a child cannot be with a tab or with a phone 24/7. So there are parents that will say at a certain time of the day, it's time to sleep, submit your phone. Children should not go to bed with phones, for example. You are going to sleep, they are going to sleep. They are saying they are going to sleep. They are not in their room. Do you know what they will be doing with the phone and all that? Things like that. If there's Wi-Fi in the house, they cannot have unlimited access. Controls, until they are able to manage the independence, and the independence in tranches. So I will not give my 5-year-old a tab, for example. When he wants to watch whatever, he still uses our phones sometimes. And so it is when we want, not that he has unlimited access. I don't know whether those things about that, and God will help us. And of course, we have to train them also on how to engage on social media. Some of them don't know that adults can stalk them on social media. They don't know all those gory things that can happen on social media. They don't know that you don't talk to strangers on social media. The stranger of today, the stranger of our time was the one on the road. But in today's world, the stranger is online, is on the net, is in another country that you don't even know, is in another part of town, is 40 years old or 60 years old, pretending to be a teenager and talking to your teenager on social media. So we also have to educate these teenagers anyway when they use these devices. A lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Mrs. Yinka, do you want to pitch in?
I think a lot has been said. Like take advantage of, for example, for movies. There's this I focus on the family. There's a group. They do have a site in which they rate movies. So before my children go see a movie, I try to check on them. They give a Christian perspective to the movies, say what's the background, and like the first speaker actually said, sometimes it's good for you to go in and see what it's all about. There are some I've regretted going in with them, and I'm like, I might as well have taken my money and thrown it away. There are some I've actually fallen asleep because I felt it was, but they, like we said, there are boundaries, and the children should be, the boundaries set. They will learn to respect the boundaries when they see us respecting boundaries. I believe a lot in leadership by example. We set boundaries. We don't do this. Why? And if the question nowadays is why? Why is everybody why? And they need an explanation for why. And we must be ready to sometimes give them an answer. When we were growing up, it was more like because I say so. You are not doing it because I say so. But now they need to know why. That look, these are, and sometimes I let them listen and let them read certain stories of people that have walked in this path and how they got their hands burnt. And this is why you're not having it. Sometimes I take it from the Bible. And this example, this is what happened to this. And so I think it's very well put. Don't let us, I won't flog the response more than what we've already said. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. So I'll just go to the next question. I can see we have a number of questions here. Okay, so the next question is, as a parent, what practical steps can one take as a correctional measure for one's teenagers who have gone out of the course? So basically, maybe a teenager has strayed away. What correctional steps can a parent take? Mrs. Yinka, you can go ahead, ma.
Okay. We gave an example of a train track. When a train derails, that we go back to where the problem started. Some of these we have to trace them back to what is actual. Sometimes a child is reacting, is rebelling, is just rebellious to certain things. There are certain things that they've noticed in the family. They've noticed that you're saying something and you're acting otherwise. You know, it's not an excuse, but we need to bring the children to understand what the issue is, why what they are doing. You understand what is wrong with it, what could happen. You know, they need to understand, you know, that okay, you say you want to do this, you say you are doing this, you're into drugs. These are the consequences. I'll give an example. Somebody I know so well. The son got into university, but you know, she was praying as well. He had issues and he flunked it. She was praying because the boy at an early age became, you know, had a girlfriend, you know, and one day the boy just came and said, you know what, Mom, Dad, I'm having problems. And the university asked him to leave, you know, and he came back home. After a while, the boy told the girlfriend that, you know what, I can see my life. I can see what is happening. Sometimes children need to, you know what they call tough love, but we need to ask the Lord what we need to do. I tell you, I won't use psychology. I won't use a mindset. I won't use a book pattern. We need to ask the Lord. The Bible says, in all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. Some children need to learn by tough love. Some children need to, you know, you need to talk to them. Some you need to take certain privileges away. So there is no, I would say there's no one size fits all. You have a child that is struggling in a particular area, maybe it's gone into drugs. There are certain things we need to look at. You need to call that child. You need to pray. Parents need to pray. You have, you know, you need to, if you need to get him or I into rehab, get him or I into rehab. But I will never underestimate the power of prayer. Ask God, the maker of that child, to please bring that child back. We have children on the streets. We have children. When I was in Nigeria, I was involved in this drug rehabilitation committee, and we see a lot of children that went into drugs, you know, and for some parents, they sold their jewelry. The child took the jewelry, squandered all the inheritance, of like a prodigal son. But the power of prayer in most cases has brought those children back. Some of them, you see, there are two words that they sound alike, but they are not the same. And that is the word, you know, pray, P-R-E-Y, and pray as in P-R-A-Y. If you do not pray, you have the enemy prey on the child, P-R-E-Y. It is important. The power of prayer, you see, we were made in God's image and in his likeness. We cannot overemphasize that. And so his word was what made us. His word is what can shape us. His word is what can remodel a child. His word is what can change a heart. So please, if you are having a child, go back on your knees and ask his maker. Any other thing might result to manipulation, which is witchcraft. But go back to his maker to remodel, remake that heart. I feel for parents who are going through it, and I know it's a painful place to be, what they call tough love, but sometimes it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma. Okay, so I'll just take the next 3 questions very quickly. Our time is fast spent. Okay. Okay, so what's the remedy for a child who had a faulty parental background or training till adulthood? How can the child who has now become an adult change or become better? Maybe we can just take this in like 1 minute each. So basically, this person is asking for a child who only saw maybe faulty things, a faulty parental background, and is now an adult, how can he become better so that he doesn't pass that onto his or her own children?
Jesus was talking to the children of Israel, to the disciples, when they asked him, who sinned? The Jews asked him, they said that Moses allowed us to do so because Moses allowed us to divorce our wives. And Jesus answered them, he said, it was not so from the beginning, but because of the hardness of your heart. A lot of things have been permitted in our society. A lot of things have been allowed, but it was never so. If somebody had been exposed to wrongdoings, take it one step at a time. You understand? Take it one step at a time. Remodeling that shape, you understand? Exposing them to the truth. Exposing them to, what should be. Yeah, that this is, there are so many times it's read in the Bible that I put before you life and death. Choose life that you may live. Let them be exposed to life, all the good things. And, tell them, yes, they will fall, but they will still come back. And gradually, they will learn from their mistakes. They will learn and support it with prayers. I cannot overemphasize prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Zepsi, do you want to comment on that question? Okay. Let me quickly move on to the next question. How do we ensure discipline and enforce the boundaries we have set now that there is a shift away from the traditional punishments that we grew up knowing?
Sometimes some of the punishments or disciplines we now have are things like withdrawals, timeouts. A child that, sometimes you just wait. A child has been waiting to get, like somebody was talking about game device. Just say there's no game device. The child has been asking to go out. You say, okay, because you did this. While we do, you understand, they need to know that there are consequences. And sometimes when we have spelled it out, that if you do this thing, this is the punishment, then you must, as a parent, please make sure you carry out that discipline. Because otherwise the child, will push the boundary. Say nothing happened the first time. And that's why I do not want to mention him. That's why some of the people that we have in the world as leaders are behaving the way they are. They just push boundaries. They just push boundaries. And if they do not suffer consequences of it, they will go further. And they become a menace to the society. So we need to, all this boundary, we need to withdraw things, privileges, time out. You're not going out. You are not, because of certain, and they need to know why they are not, why they are not having it. They need to know why they are not having it. You just don't skip it. Because you've done this, I told you if you do this, this is what will happen. So please, you can't have it.
I'm sorry, I had difficulty on muting. It wasn't responding.
Oh, sorry about that, ma.
But my sister is doing fine. The Holy Spirit is speaking through her. So there's really little or nothing to add. I'll just add on the matter of, since we are emphasizing flogging. I think I've shared before in one of the conferences that, generally in some countries anyway, like when my sister is at, I don't want to murder the name. You can't even flog. You can't flog. But those of us here in Africa, we are still getting away with flogging. And some people will say, okay, is it right? Is it not right? And my own take generally is, first of all, if we're talking about teenagers, especially a teenager that has even gone off track, that's not the time to begin to flog. The teenager will just be more hardened. Mm-hmm. So flogging is not prescribed, even if you will spank, maybe a child, definitely not a teenager. So spanking is not for teenagers. Consequences, like my sister has said, let them know that for whatever it is you do, you link consequences with privileges. This generation, they have what you call entitlement mentality. They think they have a right to everything. Let them know that no, One day my daughter was saying she's going to school because of us. Yeah, father and I said, madam, you are going to school because of yourself. You are not going to, you will get good grades for us. Who is us? That we got our good grades for ourselves, and that's what is helping us today. So don't think you are doing us a favor. So everything that they have, they need to know that, you know, they have their own responsibilities or their own roles to play, you know, and if they don't do, even take something like a gadget, they need to know that it's not their right when they do get gadgets, and that if they don't use the gadgets as appropriate, they don't behave themselves online, they don't follow the rules. So even when we give them these gadgets, they should be with rules, not open-ended, okay, yeah, have a new phone, go and do whatever you want to do. No, there should be rules. So when they now flout those rules, automatically, then the consequences are brought out, you know, for them to face. And that, because that's how life is actually. We all have to face the consequences of our actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. Ms. Lefty, so there's a question for you, specifically for you.
With my name on it, oh my God.
The question says, yes. Considering that the best formative age for children to learn things faster is between the age of 4 to 10, how can a child above that age be redeemed if they have gone beyond control?
In terms of learning, I think we've addressed it too. I think it's part of it's part of the question that was asked earlier about a child that has already passed. I think it has been addressed. And some of the things that the second speaker said was prayer, the power of prayer. I believe in it as well. Where all is lost, God, you know, will definitely guide as to what to do for that child. But in terms of learning, yes, the truth of the matter is that there are some things that are more difficult to learn as you grow older. So take, for example, a second language. The sports, they say that anybody that has ever been a world champion in any sport started before age 6. The same thing with those that got to, you know, that really were maestros, if you like, in like music, e.g. the late Michael Jackson and people like other people like that were introduced very early. So there's no, yes, you can try the grace of God, but there's certain things, particularly learning languages, music, social aspects of life, things like good manners, teaching how to greet. There's a reason why these are even the things that are emphasized at preschool. If you remember, is at preschool they teach them 5 magic words, this and that. It's because if you don't teach those things at that stage, you don't teach it. It's not in. It gets more difficult. So you want to maximize that stage. But even if it is that period is gone, I think like my sister said earlier, that doesn't mean you can still not make an effort. You can still make an effort, and with prayers, you can redeem lost time. But take, for example, learning it. There are some things that are really almost tough, like second language. Like you want your child, for example, to speak French and speak Spanish and speak English without an accent. It has to be before age 10. After that, it will be tricky. They might learn the language, but you will know that they are not natives. That's the point, like something like language. But somebody that learns, but a child that is introduced to a new language in those foundational years, you won't even know that the child is not a native of that language. So that's the way it works. But that doesn't mean you can't learn the language. It's just that the efficiency won't be as good as in those particular years.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma. So because of our time, I'll just take the last 2 questions. Okay, but Ms. Zinka, your hand is up. So let's have your comments first.
Yes, I just want to quickly say there is this general belief that in Canada that people don't discipline. But the law in Canada, Section 43 of the Criminal Code, actually allows reasonable force and allows you to discipline your child. And a lot of parents have been under this illusion that you can't spank it. You can spank, but you do not abuse the child. There's a difference between the two. So I just needed to put that in. Some people are calling in from Canada. Please, the law, you're actually under the law, you're allowed to, but it should not be abusive. It should be seem to be reasonable force. Just to add that to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, so we have a number of questions, but our time is far spent. Okay, let me just take these 2, and then both our speakers can just, help us. Okay, so a question here says, how much impact do parents have in choosing a career path for their children? Or simply put, can a parent decide a career path for the child and still make the right choice for the child? That's a question. Then let me take the second one so we can just answer them together. Okay, another question says, one of the mistakes we make as parents is trying to overcompensate for what we feel we missed out on growing up. How do we draw that line to ensure that there is a balance, that is, protect them from some of the deep struggles we face whilst empowering them as well? Wow, deep questions. So the first question was speaking to career paths. Can we as parents choose career paths for our children and still make the right choices?
Okay. Can I please just quickly make my own comment, because my battery, I'm outdoors and my battery is going to go off any moment. So let me just,
okay, please go ahead.
Please, if you don't mind. All right, so personally, I think we can, the use of language is we need to be careful with the use of language. We cannot make career choices for our children, but we can guide them. We can guide them. But the choice has to be theirs. They have to own it. And because they are the ones that will do the school. They are the ones that will do the studying. They are the ones that will pay the price, to get that that will be needed, that they will need to pay, in becoming skilled in that career. You won't do the school for them, you won't do well. So they have to be self-motivated. So it has to be that this is what they get to the point of saying, this is what I want to do, this is what I think I should do, not that when they are laboring over books and whatever else they need to do, that it's my mommy that said I should do it, or no. So we can guide them. We can guide them by helping them be self-aware, getting them clear on what their strengths are, even before the discussion is on career, So we can guide, but we cannot decisively say, do this course. We have to make them see how, and it cannot be, the truth of the matter is they should also have choices. It can't be a child that is gifted in certain aspects. Usually there will be a range of careers that the person will be good at, not that, oh yeah, do medicine. The skills that will make that child a good, that you are seeing that you think will make the child a good medical doctor, would also, be useful in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 other similar careers that those same skills or attributes would also make them fly. So you give them options, you guide them, from before you even the discussion on career, the child is already, you're affirming the child as to what the areas where he or she is good. So that's my take on career. I'm not sure I caught what the other question is. The other question was, thank you.
Thank you. So the other question was on overcompensating because of what we face.
Okay. I remember now. What came to mind for me there is for us to also appreciate the fact that the things that we think we were deprived of, that what we are as adults is a combination of not just what we got from our parents, but also what we didn't get. Some of those things that we didn't get are even part of what, thank God we didn't get them. So we must see that we shouldn't look at our childhood, even the bad experiences, all of them have a place in who we have become. God indeed knows how he works, as he has worked all those things out for our good and for us to be the people we are today. So we shouldn't see, for me, it's just not even thinking you need to compensate or overcompensate, I don't, that's all I can say concerning that. Why I don't need to overcompensate. If I see my childhood from that holistic view, that both the good, the bad, and the ugly all worked out for my good. So I don't need to create a particular picture perfect childhood for my child, because it actually does not even exist. The world itself is not a perfect place. I do the best that I can. I provide. I don't provide to the level of spoilage. So you have to balance it in the middle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma. Mrs. Inka.
Yes, concerning guidance, I totally agree with what my sister said. There are so many examples that time will not permit me to give different examples. Fela Anikulapo Kuti was one, Michael Jackson. There are so many people that this is what they desire to do. This is what they ended up doing. how it affected their lives. It's only in one case I see in the Bible that Apostle Paul said, if you had listened to me when they had a shipwreck, they would not have suffered this loss. You can only guide a child. You can only guide and let them know these are their strengths, these are their weaknesses. This is what their interest is. But I will also add that for my children, I actually tell them, my children as in all the children that are under my care, I tell them that in future, don't tell me that, I would actually tell you that I told you so. So it's one that I play that. Don't tell me I didn't tell you that you can do more than what you settled for, because they need to know that, sometimes you find that water flows in the direction of least resistance. If you are you just want comfort. A lot of people in my own time, a lot of people just wanted to enter university, just wanted to pass JAMB. You didn't care what the course was. They said the course was urology. Let's go. Only for you to find out that, it's actually the repair of a wristwatch. It may sound very fine. It may sound very good, but how many people go to an urologist to repair their wristwatch? Most people just go to the dollar store and buy batteries or pick another wristwatch. So you need something that is meaningful, something that, will put food on the table and will put clothing on the back. So we still need to guide. That is what I'll say concerning the career path for our children. Pray along with them, and let them know that, God will guide them. Every door that is opening. Concerning overcompensating, I did make a reference to this. The book by Philip Yancey talks about it, that, sometimes we want to give our children what we did not have, but sometimes, in most cases, it's a relative term. We do not know where to draw the line. In economics, they say ceteris paribus, that is holding all things constant, but nothing is actually constant. Nothing is actually held constant. Things keep moving, and a lot of things affect our lives. A lot of things juggle our lives. So you can only do as much as you can do. Jesus Christ said this concerning the woman that anointed his head. She said she did all that she could. All that you are able to do to train up your child, asking for wisdom, just like we talked about the story of Samson, asking God for wisdom, that what should I do? What should I not do? Asking God for direction, and leaning on whatever door the Lord has opened for that child, you understand? And being able to say, no, you cannot have this. The fact that your friends are having it doesn't mean, that you would have it. Sometimes, one thing that we did not really elaborate about is, although I know my sister mentioned it, is all these ideas about sleepovers. What are we exposing our children to when they go out and sleep in other families? We've had instances of abuse, so some of those things, people might be doing it. Some people might have it for their children. It might be a celebration and everything, but they don't have to have it if they don't need it. Sometimes what they don't need to have, they don't need to have, and the Lord will guide us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma. Thank you to our speakers, Mrs. Yinka, Mrs. FC. It's been a beautiful time. Our time is fast spent. We apologize, but I trust that we've all gained something today. So at the beginning, I said I was going to give out a voucher, but it seemed like it was a tie. It seemed like we got a tie from our panel of judges. So our voucher will be going to 2 people. And that will be Sister Olubusayo Adams. She started commenting from the first instruction of dropping location and everything. She has been a very active participant. And the second runner will be Igwezi Ezine. Yes, she didn't put her location at first. But she has been really commenting, asking questions. So please send a personal message to me or Family Minders Foundation chat now. Just send a direct message with your account number and you'll be credited with a token from the Family Minders Foundation. So Baba, bringing this to a close, thank you so much. We have a few announcements, and then to make the announcement, I will just invite the chairman of the Family Minders Foundation to take the announcement. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. And to those who won, thank you so much. We are particularly grateful that you stayed this long and you could win. To our speakers, Mrs. Yinka and Mrs. Funshaw, thank you so much. We are grateful for those brilliant sessions and submissions. I just want to quickly take the announcements because of time. I really pray that everything we've gotten today would live out and practice, and it would help us be all that we're supposed to be as parents and our roles and responsibility as parents. Thank you to everyone once again. We are grateful for being here. So the major announcement that we have is that we have thought about it, and what we want to do is to have this conversation every month. Just having a conversation like this every month to bring to our forefront and to our minds the need and the importance for parenting. Because, you know, one of the speakers said that it's easy to get sidetracked by pursuing materialistic things, and sometimes we just forget the importance or the necessity or the power of parenting. And because we do, we maybe just miss out on what we can be doing and living out. So when we have this conversation, maybe 1 hour, 30 minutes about that every last weekend of the month. So is that going to be a Saturday or a Sunday? What we want to do is we have a link where we'll drop on the chat before this session is over. And these conversations will be had monthly. We'll be talking about, you know, there was something that Mrs. FC said just in giving her last comment about that geniuses are made between the ages of 0 and 6. And what's interesting is that that's actually the topic we're looking at for the next session, how to recognize and, you know, just see the genius. You know, Ms. Dinka also mentioned the fact that as a parent, you go to God and you can get what they ought to be and can start pointing them in the direction. You're not making the choice for them, but you are guiding them and pointing them in the right direction. So one of the next conversations we'll be having is how to recognize and see that genius, or see where they are, you know, being directed to, and how to harness that genius in them and bring it out in them. So that should be around September conference with them. So please, we'll be dropping that link. It's bit.ly, bit.ly/family minders. So it's just a Google form that lets us know you're interested in being a part of the community. We'll be opening that group, and if you fill the form, we'll add it to a WhatsApp group, and in the group you just get details about the meeting. Just be a mostly conversation like this, 1 hour, 30 minutes. Just talk about parents. You know, we have experts, guest speakers that we had today speak to us, and just share information with us. I want to thank our speakers once again for being here today. Mrs. FC has been in the conference from the first one. And one of the things we also make available is the recordings and the audio recordings, even from the first conference up until now. We're going to try to package it together. And for those of us who will be on the group, we're dropping it in bits and pieces, snippets of it, so that we'll just get lessons from it. I think that's the major announcement that we have for you. Apart from that, we just want to say thank you so much for joining this evening. Thank you to some who made this work. I have to thank Olamide. Olamide played a major part in the project manager for Family Minders Foundation and still of that. So I want to thank you especially. I'll thank my wife. My wife is the moderator of this, Mrs. Oluwafi Amobi. Thank you so much. And our guest speakers, once again, thank you. And all the listeners and participants, thank you for being here. You were here from the start and you are here till now. And to those who won, we are grateful to give you a token. Thank you for participating. Thank you for engaging. For the second runner-up, Izini, your questions, brilliant. And for the first runner-up, for actually engaging in the comments also. Thank you. Thank you so much. On that note, we'll just say a short prayer and then bring the meeting to close. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this conversation. Thank you for the things you have brought to bear to the minds of every listener here. We pray that you give us the grace to live it out and practice everything we've heard. We pray that we live out our responsibility and roles as parents, and that from today henceforth we are mindful about protecting, but not just protecting, as we were told, harnessing the genius
in the minds of our children, or of the minds of our children. Help us to live out this responsibility, to not any man's standard, but your standard, to the end that our children be all that you want them to be and fulfill all that they're meant to fulfill concerning their lives and destiny. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much, everybody. Do have a lovely rest of the day. Have a lovely weekend. Bye from this side. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of chats. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Chine. Thank you, Olamide. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. So Obie. Thank you, Izini. Gracie. Thank you. Thank you, Damilola Mujid. Dami Mujid. Thank you. I can see you. Thank you, Dorcas Adeosi. Thank you, Lara Adeosi. Thank you, Washing. Thank you, Adetola Adeosi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.